Hey guys, Jesse here, and today I'm going to do a quick lining tutorial. I'm just working on my high new here, and I remember a while ago I said I would make one, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now. I'm hoping this tutorial will be a little all-inclusive, so it's going to include all sorts of types of, lining and techniques. Really, there are only really two, but I'm just going to go ahead and use it here. I found a piece that kind of has the two ways of lining kind of on it already, which I'll explain here in a second. But it's not the best piece, but it's just the current one I'm working on. But yeah, we're gonna line these little ticks and lines and stuff, and I'll just show you how I like to do them. So the two ways I like to line is I mainly use panel line accent color from Tamiya and a fine tip Gundam marker, black. So I use this for things like the little ticks here and like this little area. And then I'll use the Tamiya accent for pretty much everything else. So longer lines like this, something like this line here, and maybe parts like that. I'm not going to do it in here, but if this piece had very deep details that I couldn't get at with the Gundam marker, I would use the panel line accent. And to be honest, I try to avoid using the marker at all costs, and I'll talk a little bit about why later. But there are disadvantages and advantages to both, obviously. But we're just going to go ahead and get started. And we'll start with the marker, which is what most people start with. So pretty simple. It's just a fine tip marker. I always use black for the most part, unless I know many people will say that you should always use gray on white, but as someone who works on heavy machinery with a lot of panels and stuff, the area between panels and plates, they're incredibly dark. I mean, it's nothing but shadows. So to me, black is just fine. I'll use gray if the suit design sort of is more sleek, something like the Exia. I used gray, but really it's up to you. And for me, black just looks more appropriate. But in any case, so we're just gonna take this and fill in these little ticks just like this. As you can see, it's not perfectly in there, but what I like to do is I like to take my finger and just smudge like this, wiping incredibly hard, putting like a lot of pressure, and then all that's going to be left is whatever's in the groove, and I'll wipe in different directions. I know people will suggest getting a Q-tip and doing that, but I find that you have to rub a lot harder with the Q-tip, and the Q-tip never really gets all the excess ink, and your finger tends to be a little more absorbent than a Q-tip. I don't think this stuff is terribly bad for your skin, so it doesn't really bother me. And then I'll kind of wipe my fingers together to sort of get any excess off my thumb. So, like when I touch other parts of the piece, I don't smudge it. You probably still will, but if you do, you can just wipe it off. And yeah, that's how I use a Gundam marker. So, for these little ticks, I'll go ahead and fill those in with this Gundam marker. I'll do that later. But the reason why I like to use the Gundam marker on ticks and such and not the accent color is because the accent color can pull up around these ticks, and if there's too much, and when you go to clean it up later, it'll sort of do like an osmosis effect and kind of suck up the color within the tick. It works really well on lines because it's nice. The ink can be nice and spread out, which you'll see here in a second. So you have less of a chance of accidentally sucking up all the dry ink. So yeah, that's how I like to use a Gundam marker. The disadvantage to lining with a Gundam marker, obviously, is it takes a lot longer. You have to like go over each part of the line. If you're using it for long lines like this or like this area here, the line color can be very uneven because you're changing pressure and stuff. Even on even if it's not super obvious, it's like on a minute level. And you can't really reach deep areas with the Gundam marker. Like I'm not going to be able to get in there and line accurately with the Gundam marker, but I can with the accent color here. So and I guess the other advantage is that this is really easy to use, but as you'll see here in a second, this is also incredibly easy. It just takes a little bit longer since you have to wait for it to dry and you've got to do cleanup. But if you want your model to look better, it's going to take a little bit of time. So no harm in spending a long time on a model. This is just, that's how great models are made. Anyways, so now we're going to use this. I have no idea why this is so messy, but this is just some it's basically an enamel wash, which is another way to use to panel line. You grab some black enamel paint and then thin it down to a watery consistency and then touch it throughout the panels. And that's basically what this is, just in a convenient bottle with an applicator. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to shake it up and open it up. I'll just show you what it's like. As you can see, it's just, what you expect, just super thin black enamel paint. So this stuff smells a little, I wouldn't say strong, but it does smell. So, working with it for a long time might give you a headache. But in any case, what you want to do is you want to get your applicator wet, kind of touch off the side here, get the excess off. Then what I like to use it on are these long lines like this. This is a pretty short panel line here, but if this were to go all across the entire piece or down a leg or something, this would be ideal. So all you have to do is touch it very gently, and then as you see, the panel line is going to run through. I touched the top here by accident. Let me just quickly clean that up. So I just quickly cleaned that up with a tissue, but once I go through the cleaning process of getting rid of that little mark there, I'll just take some thinner and clean that up. Or I could take some sandpaper and sand off that. But yeah, that's it. So that's all you got to do. Just touch a spot and just watch it sort of osmosis its way through with that capillary effect. And that's it. So we'll go ahead and do that again on this line. So you can see, super simple. And if it doesn't make its way all across the entire line, you can just touch where it stopped and it'll just continue on through. And this stuff is so super easy to use. I know it looks intimidating because it's not as straightforward as a marker, since we're going to have to do some cleanup, but this is going to save you so much time if you start doing this. And look at that. And when you're doing it on very large pieces, you'll just be, amazed at how much time you save from not having to run a marker all the way down an entirety of a line. And this stuff is really good for getting in the nooks and crannies, because you just kind of have to touch a spot that it will be able to flow down, and it'll just fill in all the panel lines within a recessed area. So, and we can do the little ticks here with this as well. But as you can see, it'll start to pull up just because these are probably not deep enough. But it kind of looks like we ruined it. But after this dries, we're just going to take a Q-tip and just remove the excess with thinner. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up these pieces. You have to let this dry for at least 2 hours. So we'll come back and finish this guy up. So see you in 2 hours. Okay, so now it's been about 2 hours, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up, the mess that was made by the Tamiya accent color. So for the parts you did with the Gundam marker, there's no cleanup needed. They're done for the most part. You might have to go back and retouch up some things maybe, but for the Tamiya accent, you'll notice, we've got that pool over there and that splotch there, and we're just going to clean it up. So what you want to do is you want to take a Q-tip and get it damp with some thinner. I like to use mineral spirits because it's odorless. A lot of people like to use lighter fluid, which is a little stronger. It'll clean it up a little quicker, but you want this damp, not soaked, just enough that you can get this wet. And then we're just gonna rub it on there, and as you can see, it starts to disappear. So what I like to do actually is kind of get that wet and then use the dry side of this to sort of scrub. As you can see, that's looking really nice. And if for whatever reason some panel lines get stripped of their lining for whatever reason, You can just go back and fix it up with a Gundam marker if it's near the surface, filling in little details here and there, or use some more Tamiya accents. Okay, to go over some of this twice. So you can see not all of these little ticks got lines, so I'm going to go back with the Gundam marker and fix that. But yeah, that's it for lining, and as you can see, using the Tamiya accent color is really easy, and the greatest advantage too is the looks. Of course, your panel lines are going to look so much cleaner than using markers and not cleaning up properly. What I like to do is sometimes, as you can see, it gets a little smudgy, so just laying down some thinner and then using the dry side to sort of wipe it away is probably your best bet, because sometimes when you get large pools like this, it'll start to stain stuff around it. So, you want to do this kind of lightly. Don't scrub too hard. Just get it damp and then lightly start to rub it, and eventually you'll strip the excess. So you can see that piece is all done. Super simple, did it super quick. Again, I'm going to have to go back and touch up some of these little ticks with the Gundam marker, but yeah, just another piece for demonstration's sake. And just some pointers. I think I pointed this out when I did earlier, but if for whatever reason the panel line hasn't gone all the way down, or the panel line accent hasn't traveled all the way down a line, you can just touch it to where it last left off and sort of, help it along. I will say that with the panel line accent, you really want to just touch and not like brush on with the applicator, as tempting as that might be. You really want the panel line accent to build up and collect in the panel lines. If you brush, you'll sort of make it a little uneven and thin. So for tight crevices where you may have panel lines in deep recessed areas, you can buy thinner Q-tips, or what I like to do is use these micro brushes that I picked up at a modeling store, or even a small brush, and just get in there and clean up, and use a dry one to sort of soak up the excess panel line, because you're making the excess panel line thin, so it may tend to pull up and sort of spill around, so, and then it'll dry and stain, so you want to make sure to clean it up completely. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Super simple. As I said, I much prefer the panel line accent to markers, just because you can get really fine panel lines that look really clean, as opposed to just using panel line markers. But as you can see, I do also use panel line markers. I'm not 100% against them. So that's it for this lining tutorial. Like I said, super simple, super easy to do. And if you take the extra time to clean up either your marker or your panel line accent, you'll get a far better result than if you were just to take the marker and just line it, just one go. But that's all I got for today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.